Howdy, a long time no see. It's actually been like 150 days or something like that since I last recorded and published a video. Things have been crazy since then. The world's fallen apart, but that's fine. I hope you guys are watching this video in good health. I hope you and your family and your loved ones are all okay and safe right now. And before we actually get into the topic of the video, I just wanted to talk about the Black Lives Matter movement, because that is a large part of why I'm actually filming this video. So if you guys don't follow me on Twitter, I've been, outspoken on there about my support for this movement, but I feel like it wouldn't be right to record a video and put it up with all that's going on without at least mentioning, the death of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. So before you guys delve into the rest of this video, which I hope you guys stay, and I hope you guys find it entertaining, I've left a couple links down below of petitions and places to donate and just things you can do to support this movement. So with that being said, let's delve into the video. If you guys don't follow the bookish sphere of Twitter, a lot happened. I'm going to be citing a lot of tweets in this video, and I'm also going to be using a Buzzfeed article that really summarized everything that happened and also interviewed one of the main authors involved. So I'll link that down below so you guys can look into this some more if you're interested in that. There's a paper plate right here. I will not be answering questions about that. So this video is going to mostly pertain about the hashtag "what publishing paid me." I think it's a very fascinating hashtag, and when I was researching for this video, I found myself completely baffled and disgusted by just everything that was exposed. Background. So this hashtag began when Tochi Onyebuchi and Ella McKinney, two Black YA authors, began a Twitter campaign to raise awareness surrounding the treatment of Black authors in the publishing industry. This hashtag essentially called for people to share their advance numbers, which, if you don't know what advances are, I'll explain in a second. On June 5th, Onyebuchi tweeted, quote, "Publishing houses, y'all's Black Lives Matter statements are cute, but I'm gonna need that same energy when we start talking Black writers and book advances. If y'all think the receipts are bad now, it's about to be CVS on this website, and y'all don't want that." And if I'm looking over here, it's because that's where my laptop is and that's where all my notes are. So just wanted to get that out there. On June 6th, McKinney responded to that initial tweet with, quote, "Do y'all need a hashtag? Hashtag publishing paid me. There you go." So this tweet, or these series of tweets, basically sparked an entire dialogue in the bookish world in which authors shared their advances, which is actually a really rare thing, because mostly when it comes to authors selling books, sometimes like how many figures they received, but rarely do you ever know concrete numbers if you're not like an industry insider. So when authors began sharing how much they were paid in solidarity, it was really illuminating, and quickly a trend popped up in which white authors received sometimes 8 times more than what a Black author received for comparable works, meaning books that were maybe both of these authors' debuts in the same genre. It might be a collection of essays or, a fantasy. Regardless, it was really common for white authors to receive significantly more than Black authors, which, put a pin in that, I'll get back to that in a second. It was just really upsetting to see these numbers come from publishing houses that I regularly read from. I regularly patron and support. I buy books from these houses, and knowing that they can afford to pay Black authors so much more, but they just don't. And then they're on Twitter tweeting out, hashtag Black Lives Matter. It's a bit upsetting, honestly. So advances. I'm just going to use the Buzzfeed article to explain what advances are, because it's a bit tricky and I'm not an expert and I don't want to mess things up. But basically, quote, "An advance, which most of these tweets are referencing, is the amount a publisher pays for a book ahead of its publication. It's an advance on the royalties the author could receive from book sales, so it is theoretically a projection of those sales. In most cases, the advance is broken up into 3 installments, paid upon signing of the contract, filing the full manuscript, and the date of publication. The payments are pre-tax, so the money has to be set aside for that. There's also the agent's cut, usually 10 to 20%. The $100,000 advance suddenly becomes $60,000 maybe, which is a decent salary as long as you don't live in a major city. This is really important because this is how authors maintain their livelihood. This is how they support their career. If they're getting shit advances, then they're not going to be able to sustain a career as an author. They won't be able to continue writing because we need money to live. Another thing that I want to point out before we move on to some examples is something that N.K. Jemisin pointed out on Twitter. Quote, advances aren't an indicator of earnings, and they aren't an indicator of book quality. What then do they indicate? Let's call them an indicator of consumer confidence, specifically the publisher's confidence in consumers. And yeah, racism has an impact on that confidence. In a racist industry trying to sell books to a racist public within a racist society, come on, implicit bias alone will make negotiations harder. There are overtly biased gatekeepers too. End quote. So yeah, obviously racism has a huge impact in how much these authors are being paid for their art. One more thing before we go on to some examples, just keep in mind the number in the back of your head. $100,000 is the standard example, and how that quickly leaves an author with maybe $60,000 to live off of for the year. Keep that in mind when we start delving into how much Black authors receive, how much they're expected to live on for their art. So after Onyebuchi and McKinney's tweets popped off and the hashtag lifted off, a lot of authors came forward, again, really transparent with how much they were paid for their books. They usually provided a lot of context, so whether or not it was their debut book, what genre they were in, whether or not they earned out, which basically means they earned all of the money back on their advance, so they started to earn royalties. The first example I want to talk about is Roxane Gay, who's a really famous intersectional feminist. Her book, Bad Feminist, is a really famous essay collection, really like renowned, acclaimed, awarded, all of that. So she revealed that she was paid $15,000 in advance for her New York Times bestselling essay collection, Bad Feminist. People compared that to Lacey Johnson, who received $215,000 for her essay collection, The Reckoning. So there's a huge disparity, obviously, $200,000 between the $15,000 that Roxane Gay received and the $215,000 Lacey Johnson received. So frustrating. Next, N.K. Jemisin, who I quoted from earlier. So she received $25,000 for each book in her Broken Earth trilogy, which is like a fantasy series. Meanwhile, many white authors tweeted about their experiences receiving well over $100,000 for their debut fantasy stories. And I think this is important because N.K. Jemisin is a renowned writer. She's won the Hugo Award 3 times. There's no reason for her to be receiving a low amount of money, even before she received all of these awards and all of this acclaim. White authors out the gate are given hundreds of thousands of dollars to write their bullshit, boring ass stories. No offense to y'all. So that example was a bit frustrating. This next example, however, boiled my blood. I could not believe my eyes when I saw this. So Jesmyn Ward, who is a 2-time National Book Award winner, tweeted out that despite having won the National Book Award, she had to fight really hard to receive a $100,000 advance for her next novel. Meanwhile, Emily St. John Mandel received a $210,000 advance for her first literary novel. She then won the same award that Jesmyn Ward won, so the National Book Award. And for the next novel, she was offered $800,000. So she was offered 8 times more than what Jesmyn Ward had to fight for. That is so frustrating. And then I just wanted to mention the $800,000 some guy got for his literary erotica novel, a debut novel at that. You'll probably be seeing some videos pop up with people talking about having read an $800,000 book. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that. Good for him. Good for him. So again, keep in mind that the $100,000 advance quickly and easily turns into about $60,000 in 3 installments, right? So $20,000, $20,000, $20,000 over the course of a year. Try to imagine how much Roxane Gay or N.K. Jemisin had to receive after the literary agent took their cut of the $15,000, of the $25,000, after they had to set aside money for taxes. That money isn't livable. Black authors have to work significantly harder to get half as much as a white author. This is just another form of systematic inequality in which publishers value their white authors while portraying a handful of Black authors for diversity points. Publishers lowball Black authors to the point in which debut or even newer authors receive pennies when their white counterparts receive dollars. All that ensures is that there are fewer Black authors able to produce their art. able to have their voices heard, able to share their story. And now more than ever, I think it's really important for these voices to be heard, these stories to be shared. It's extremely, extremely frustrating to view because the publishing industry touts itself as being a really woke one. But when you break it all down, when you see what percentage of the workers in these industries, the editors, are white, when you break it all down and see how many books they buy from white authors, and the few Black authors, the few people of color they have on their team, the few people of color, that they buy from, how much they receive for their art, it's very plain to see that these marginalized communities aren't cared for. They're not cultivated. They're only supported to save face. They're only supported to uphold this imagery of being a very woke and diverse industry, when in reality, like, what are they doing? What are they doing? They're not supporting anybody. I just wanted to end this video on 2 points. The first of which being that I in no way want to come across as shaming these white authors for how much they received. I just wanted to point out the differences in what Black authors got in similar circumstances. I think it's really cool that these authors stuck their neck out and shared how much they received in their advances. I think it's, it's really important. This transparency goes a long way in ensuring the next batch of Black authors know their worth. They are better armed and equipped to go into meetings, willing to negotiate for higher advances. And then next, I just want to say that I know that there are a bunch of factors that go into how much an author receives in advance for their novel. Just spare me the comments of, well, I know this Black author who, got this because of this, and I don't care. I don't care. I think the overall trend still stands. It doesn't change much from imprint to imprint, publishing house to publishing house. It's very clear that Black authors aren't as valued as their white counterparts, which is a shame. If Black lives really matter to these publishing houses, then they would prove it. They would amplify Black voices, pay them their due, provide them with proper marketing so that their books don't flop on publication day. I think it's important for these publishing houses to support Black voices, Black authors, not just when it's convenient, not just during Black History Month, not just when there's another tragedy involving a Black body. And I'm just really disappointed. And I highly encourage anyone who's interested in reading the article that I have linked down below, going through the hashtag. There are so many other stories shared that I just haven't talked about in this video. I just want this industry to do better. And obviously the readers can do better too. We can read more diversely, purchase more books from authors of color, specifically Black authors, read these books, review these books, talk about these books. But the publishing industry, y'all hold a lot of power. Y'all have a lot of money, enough money to line these authors' pockets, So that's all I wanted to say. I'm tired. I'm tired. Do better. Y'all can do better.